what other people do and create with their content, but I know I'm going to do things a little bit differently. So hello, welcome to the Blue Morpho Podcast, where we transform pain into purpose. And a big thing for me is living a life authentically in alignment with who I am. And I didn't know who that was until recently. So we are here today, and I wanted to talk about two different concepts. First, it is finished and what that means in my life, and also limiting beliefs and how they've impacted me for so long and what I'm doing to change that. So if you're tuning in on YouTube or you're looking at the visuals on the podcast, I'm going to be getting ready for what? I don't even know yet, just looking more presentable. So it's a little get ready with me plus some chatting about psychology, philosophy, the healing journey, and alchemy, all the good stuff. So hi, my name is Really Raven, and you must be really interested in the growth mindset, and that's why you're here, I assume. I could be wrong. So it is finished. That is a phrase that I've experienced multiple times in my life, a feeling, I guess, that I've embodied, and it's kind of been the end of every chapter. I felt it for the first time in Delaware when I moved from Delaware to North Carolina. And then I felt it again going through my divorce and packing my life up into my car, selling all my things, well, just about all of them, and deciding I wanted to travel across the country. I had that feeling of it is finished. I've also experienced it when I was in Colorado after a whole year, basically, of living nomadically, living on the road. And I knew that I wanted to come to Florida. I knew that I wanted to move. I didn't know how I would get there. I didn't know when I would get there, but I had this feeling of it is finished. And it's funny because I still have a bucket list for all of those places. I still have a list of things that I want to do, things that I want to see. And I still had that feeling, even with those things not accomplished. I wouldn't even call it an accomplishment, but checked off the list, right? And what's interesting is I felt it here just this week. So today is what? Tuesday. We are in what, March 4th, 2025. And I have this feeling of it is finished. The place that I'm at right now, by the way, little doggy in the background. So you might hear some tapping. I had the feeling again, and I don't know what's next. But I felt this way before and everything worked out. And I felt that way before and everything worked out, even if it didn't always work in my favor. Hey, Papito, come here. Hi, sweetheart. So I want to talk about this feeling because I think that there's so many chapters in our life that do have a definitive end, but we are not ready to heed that answer. We don't want to acknowledge that it could be the end of something that we invested so much in, right? So it's been a shame because I had that feeling the other day, and yesterday I ended up meeting a bunch of friends, meeting for coffee, going for a little nature walk, and the community that I've built here has been absolutely incredible. Uh-oh, she's got a toy and she's coming over. And I don't want to leave. There's still things that I want to do here. But lately I've also been having some dreams about death, not of me, but of other people or animals even. And a lot of feelings comes up. But I do believe that it is almost like an end before an end. I've had to grieve a lot of people, a lot of opportunities, a lot of different realities that I wanted in my own life because of this. Hey, baby. Can you lay down? The tip and tappy. Hi, cutie pie. She's also like my emotional support dog for the week. Totally distracted by her cuteness at this point. I am so sorry if you hear some panting in the background. She brings me joy. So it doesn't feel finished according to my logic, according to my reasoning. There's still things that I wanted to do. And even a few weeks ago, I had experienced a rejection, and that rejection felt like the last string tying me to this place. And there's still people here that I love and want to stay connected to, but I also feel like I've outgrown it. Like I experienced what I wanted to experience, which was the life an alternate life that I wanted to live. So what that means is in North Carolina and in Delaware, I had been dreaming about living here for, I would say, at least 4 years. This was a place in my mind with my partner where this was the goal. And I had already created a whole list of plants that do well in this zone. I had created a list of the garden I wanted. I knew the places that we'd visit, the bars, the state parks. Like, I had created a bucket list years before even visiting this place. And then because I separated from my partner, I felt like I had no right to come here. I felt like because it was a shared dream, I had to let it die. And, I lived a whole year on the road thinking I wasn't allowed to be in this state. I wasn't allowed to be in this city that I myself wanted to come and visit and create a life for myself in my imagination for. And even when I moved here, there was so much, I wouldn't call it imposter syndrome, but it was like I had no right to be here. And also explaining that to people was so challenging. Like, God forbid you live out the dreams that you wanted to pursue, but you weren't the one to introduce that dream to yourself. You know what I'm saying? It's like going to a restaurant that a partner or a friend has talked about for years, but because they're not with you, you're not allowed to go. You're not allowed to experience what you were so excited for. So I was like scared, not only for myself and also putting myself in a position where I'm even closer to like the danger that I had escaped from, but also just not giving myself permission to live that life out. And actually ChatGPT was very instrumental in giving me like a pep talk. Another person does not own a city. You are not forbidden from entering a place because they said so, or because you're going to be in closer proximity. Also, I just want to review this makeup real quick. I love this skin tint, but it like pills on the skin on top of my other formulas and serums, so maybe I shouldn't do that again. Anyway, back to the podcast. Hippie, what is it? Mad Hippie Sheer Tint Sun Serum. Love it, 10 out of 10, but yeah, don't put it on top of other products. Anyway, so I came here feeling like I don't have a right to be here. I'm not allowed to. I am afraid to be seen in public. I'm afraid that this person will find out that I'm here. I'm afraid to have to explain myself to other people of why I still wanted to pursue this dream that I had, just because it wasn't mine by myself and it wasn't my own origin. Do you get what I'm saying? So it was really challenging to even be in the comfort of living here. So with that, I also still felt unsafe. And that's been something that I'm working on, is reaffirming that when I'm alone, I am safe, but also around people, I am safe. That's new to me because people, after having experienced so much trauma, have been the source of my anxiety, the source of my fear, the source of danger for my entire life. Like, if you've even been raised around family members who are toxic or predatory, you will understand what I'm saying. You don't know what a safe person is. You don't know who you can trust because the people around you were so untrustworthy. And we're also doing this game of give and take, and fear and love being intertwined, and trying to make you feel safe in an unsafe place. You've been conditioned, I was conditioned to accept that for so long. So to feel safe in my own body and to feel safe around other people has been a real challenge, especially in a place that I don't feel I have a right to be in. So with all of that, I intentionally wanted to overcome that fear because I know that it is my own brain that is doing that, is perpetuating it. There's no one in my outside circle who either knows that I'm even here or knows my motivation for being here. So it took a little bit of exposure therapy, of making myself uncomfortable, of continuing to live the life that I want to out loud, and having the ability to be myself in a place that I haven't given myself permission to exist in, right? So with all of that being said, "It is finished" has been a phrase that came up not because I've done everything that I wanted to do or seen everything that I wanted to see, but because there is nothing keeping me here anymore. I learned the lessons that I was meant to learn, which is that life is so different. That there are so, first of all, I have an incredible roommate who is the safest, most kind, most intelligent, courageous person that I know. Super driven, just an incredible example in my life. And also that this area has a lot of dysfunction to it, just inherently because of the place that it is and because of the people that are here for work. And I don't want to continue to put myself in those positions to be surrounded by that. And it's funny because I found a job that I was so excited for. I'm talking like I networked for months for it. I am attending all of these summits where all of these individuals that would be potentially hiring me are there. And like I put my name into this community. And I was so excited for this job because it felt like I could give back to the community that I didn't benefit from. I could save other people like me from going through the pain that I experienced. And I love the idea of that, right? To be able to help members of special forces and their families to stay together and to be healthier, because I didn't experience that and I didn't have the support. So I wanted to be the change that I would have taken advantage of and that I would have used and needed. A little tippy tappies, gosh, cute, but a little interruption. Hey, can you lay down? Can you lay down? With your Kong toy? Go lay down. Oh, not quite. So it's been interesting because I was interviewing for these positions. I networked with a bunch of people. They were all excited for me to join the team, genuinely. And I didn't get the green light. After a few interviews, I did not. And it's interesting because there were other people interviewing who were arguably more, oh, wow, that sound, were more educated in that field and had firsthand experience of it. And they didn't even get the position. So someone who was training for the role didn't get it. I didn't get it. So I have no idea who actually was qualified enough to get it. But for me, it felt like the rejection that I needed to put this place to rest. So, because for the position, I would voluntarily be putting myself in situations that are harmful for me. But because I'm so used to it, and because I have such a high tolerance for discomfort and mistreatment, and I've experienced that familiar dysfunction again and again and again, I feel like I can handle it and therefore transform it. But the reality is that has not been true at any point in my life. By voluntarily putting myself in situations of dysfunction and with people who are using me as a vessel for their struggles has never benefited them or me, because in the end, they took advantage of me, but they never learned how to stand on their own. That's true of my ex, that's true of my friendships, that's true of family members. I always thought by being a positive influence, I would change people for the better just by being in their presence, or by association, being a positive influence, showing them by example, like this is the life that you could have and this is what I see in you, and just breathing life into all these people. I loved it so much and I still do. And that's just who I am. Like I will always be a giver. But takers will always be takers. There will never be a time when they are satisfied with what they've received and change for the better, because they've benefited from your lack of boundaries, from my lack of boundaries for so long. All I did was enable their dysfunction. And that was so painful to realize, because it's like, you didn't learn anything. You didn't grow with me, and I don't want to grow alone. And I see your potential. I see everything that you are capable of. You're so incredibly capable, but you keep hurting me and you keep hurting other people. You keep hurting yourself. For what? For what? And now that I learn more about psychology, I recognize what they are seeking. And it's really like the belief, they want reinforcement of who they believe that they are. And I think that in many ways, in many areas of our lives, we do the same thing, right? We think we're not worthy of healthy love, so we settle for partners that are unhealthy. We feel like we're not worthy of getting paid $100,000 on a salary, So we're not applying for those positions because we think it's out of our range. And even if you were to get those positions, or you were to be in a relationship with that person who you feel is above you, you might self-destruct or bring them down to your level. You don't learn the lessons for both of you to rise up if it's coming from a place of insecurity and lack and scarcity. And it's so sad to see that in the people that you care about. And that's happened for me on repeat with so many different dynamics that I've experienced. And so I need to take a step back and realize, okay, Lord, because now that I pray now, I actually have faith in something bigger than myself because of my inner turmoil and the past 2 years of trauma. I say to God, close the doors that I'm not meant to enter. Do not let me walk through these doors to opportunities that are going to harm me or stunt my progress or feel like a familiar hell to me. But because it's familiar, I keep walking through the same doors and I continue to surround myself with those people. Please take me away from it. And in doing so, I've experienced so much disappointment. I've experienced so much rejection and loss of identity from that. But at the end of the day, why am I continuing in a cycle voluntarily? Why am I continuing to try to get ahead of the problem when it's a problem I've been shown time and time again that I alone cannot solve? It is not my responsibility to even solve it. No one is asking me to solve these problems. And if they are, they're only asking to take advantage of me. It's not coming from a genuine place of, I want help so I can get to your level. It's, I want your energy, your positivity to benefit me until I can surpass you and put you down based on the resentment they felt that you gave a hand of support in the first place because they felt undeserving of that. And because they would not do the same for someone else. So after that last rejection, it felt like, you know what? I don't need to be here anymore. I've met some great people. I've had some good experiences, but this is not like, I don't want to stay here my whole life. This isn't it for me. There's a lot of people around me here who are still living in the dysfunction, and I understand why, because that's part of their daily life. That's part of their work. And they can't escape that. Not yet. And even if they could, would they go up against those psychological limitations that they have for themselves? I'm not sure. So I don't know if anyone believes in energy and wavelengths or whatever, but I do feel like I've leveled up in terms of I don't need to continue putting myself in harm's way in order to experience good things. Suffering is not a prerequisite for success. And that's, if you believe that that's true, that is hard to undo, right? There's so many people who say, you know, you won't get anywhere unless you work hard, unless you overdo it. You have to give, spend what, 40 years working up a corporate ladder just so you can enjoy the last few decades that you have, if you have them. You're taught to sacrifice in the name of comfort later on. And I don't think that that's the only way to live, and I don't think that's the best way to live, and I don't think that's the way I want to live. There's so many people who would disagree with that, and that's fine. Live the life for you, but I would not do well in those circumstances. And knowing that about myself, why do I continue to care about the expectation of people who want a completely different lifestyle than I do and their limitations because they don't want to pursue what I want? And it's really challenging to be surrounded by people who don't believe in you. That's been a constant in my life as well. In order to make other people comfortable, I would not express my goals. I would not share my strategy, because even if it proves to work out for me and even if it proves to be effective, it would go up against the beliefs that they have about themselves, right? The same way that, I mean, oftentimes you'll hear women in positions of power, especially in the military, how many people did she sleep with to get there? Or how how many times was she on her knees to get that promotion? Things like that. It's like you have to diminish the path that that person took because you yourself could not achieve it with integrity. And I don't know, it's an interesting concept, and I want to share an example where I was, after leaving my relationship, I was living with a guy that I had met from Facebook Marketplace. Totally platonic, you know, we weren't even friends. I would argue that colleagues, roommates. And at one point he felt like my life was on easy mode. And he had made the comment about how if I started to make money from social media, he would increase the rate of my rent. And that's fascinating to me, that the mode of which I make money would make you resent me more. I mean, I think it's also funny that he didn't understand how privileged he was coming from upper class America. So because he wasn't able to receive help, it's kind of the same way that some people think about student loan forgiveness. Because they didn't have help to get to where they are, they don't think anybody should receive help, which is such a weird way to view the world. Like, you want it to be harder for everyone because it was hard for you, rather than saying it was hard for you, so you want to help other people so they don't experience what you did. It's a very weird way to live, to want other people to hurt the way that you hurt. That's not me. That will never be me. And I don't know, I guess he perceived my challenges to be smaller than his, which is insane because that's not the case. We have different challenges in different areas of life. But that resentment was there, and I could tell that. And it started to bleed into our daily life to the point where I was like in fear and not trusting him, even just alone in the house. Like, I was scared the same way that I've been with previous partners. Whether that fear is reasonable or not, we could argue that. But it was such a constant in my life, you know, listening to people's footsteps, trying to figure out what mood they're in, how they open and close the doors. What could I have done that would upset someone? And how are they going to behave after that? And that's all a result of abusive relationships, and also, you know, traumatic family dynamics in which walking on eggshells was how I learned to survive. With all of that being said, I have a choice now. I have the freedom of choice, which is incredible. And I think that everyone needs to acknowledge that you have a choice in every single circumstance you're in, every single one, even the ones that you are completely captive to. You still have a choice. I think taking away someone's choice by not informing them is actually the biggest betrayal, but that's just a little moral compass side note. But living here, I am choosing to put myself back into the cycle, and I'm choosing to tolerate something that is not good for my greatest growth. What's next? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't have a plan. And I think it's also beautiful that I now trust that I am being taken care of by God, by the universe, that I will not fail, that I've experienced so much pain and loss already. I don't need more punishment. And that's not to say I don't deserve. Deserving does, I don't know. It's such an odd word, especially when it comes to like the Bible and any scripture. It's like none of us deserve the grace that we've received from God and the love that we receive, because we're all so flawed. But despite that, and regardless of our flaws, we are still loved and watched and taken care of and protected. So I don't know. I'm grateful that I have that perspective now, because I definitely didn't have it just a few years ago. Also, if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching the podcast, I am not doing my makeup well or in any good order. But so that's where I'm at. It is finished. My lease is up soon. My P.O. box expires soon. I wasn't able to get a driver's license here, and I wasn't able to register my business here because I didn't have the driver's license. So it seems like there's all these pieces that are still not falling into place. Although I was able to publish my first chapter of my poetry book, Psychopaths Are Sexy, and the first chapter is called Grooming, and that talks about my young life and how I kind of got to falling in love with an abusive partner and kind of the cult mindset, I'll be honest, because I've experienced multiple abusive relationships and dynamics. And it goes really into the psychology. First of all, it's poetry. I go into the first person psychology and experiences of what it's like to grow up in that dysfunction, and how instead of viewing the world as dysfunctional, I saw myself as dysfunctional for not being able to handle the dysfunction. And that plays such a big role on the choices that you make going forward. Thinking that everything is your fault and everything that is wrong with the world you have to solve, it is a weight that no child should carry. And I had even written a poem about one of my partners, who is now in prison for murder, at least for, I think, 29 more years. He influenced me so much at such a young age to believe that I was responsible for people to not take their own life. And I now know that that was manipulation, but it was a manipulation that continued to happen throughout my life, where I was responsible for someone surviving, or so I thought. When the reality is, I was never responsible for that. That was never my decision to make, and I was not the cause of people's misery. They were miserable from their own life experiences, and I was a source of relief, but I'm not meant to be accessible as a source of relief for everybody all the time. It is not my burden to keep someone alive who, to be honest, didn't even want to not be alive. They were just using that as the threat to keep me in their life and to keep me coming back again and again and again out of fear, out of fear of empty threats and all of these other tactics. And that started probably, what was I, like 12 years old? Started from a very young age. And every relationship after that, you know, even friendships, that same tactic had been used against me, and it was very effective. Guilt and fear were extremely effective, because I was so concerned. What if, you know, I don't message them today and this is the day they do it? What if I was the difference between life and death? But that was never my burden to carry, especially as a little girl. And recognizing that my ex-husband had used the same tactics, and at that point in time, I had felt so in fear. Not only would he actually do that, but he would also take me out beforehand. Because if he didn't have his way, if he didn't have control over me, it was kind of the mindset of like, if I can't have you, nobody can. But then understanding the repercussions of actually doing that, and if he believed he couldn't get away with it scot-free, he would take himself out. And that was a genuine concern of mine. And that seems to be a common theme in the military, but especially within special forces. Wife killers, you know, it's not uncommon. And I think that there's many, unfortunately, many overlaps with that, and police, emergency services, you know, where it's a certain personality type that's attracted to these career fields. And it's also, you know, nature and nurture. The nature being what you were genetically predisposed to and the problems that you've experienced in the past, and the nurture of your environment and experiencing traumatic head injuries, brain injuries. What are the football players? They have CTE, is that what it's called? Encephalopathy, I believe. It affects your brain. It alters who you are and how you show up in the world. And I think that even though my partner had never been to combat and didn't have any excuse to be the level of abuse and to be the type of person capable of doing what I thought he was, part of it is nature. Part of it is in the genetics. Part of it is also in the way that these people were raised and the career fields they go into. Anyway, that was just a little side note, I guess, of what I had experienced. But I recognize now that that does not need to be a staple in my life. I do not need to be the savior all of the time, and I do not need to sacrifice myself for other people. I do not need to suffer for others. And actually, when you do that, you remove the accountability from them to save themselves. They don't learn. They don't learn how to help themselves if you're constantly doing everything for them. I think that I want to give, and I want to nurture, and I want to love, and I want to inspire, and I want to uplift so much that I end up almost taking on like a motherly role for adults, for people who do have a fully formed, what is it, hypothalamus, who have a concept of consequences for their actions, but they choose to override them and have me take responsibility for them. So I, in a way, am very grateful that I didn't get the job that I was begging and praying for, because I do think that it redirects me away from the familiar hell that I've tolerated for so long. So It Is Finished has really taken on a role in my brain, or at least it comes with weight, that it matters when I have that experience and that feeling. And I'm not sure, share with me, in the comments of the video, if you've ever experienced that it is finished, this chapter is over, you are done with this person, this place, this thing, this career. Has there ever been a definitive moment that you can pinpoint? Or has it just been a feeling in the background? And did you listen to it? That's the big part. Did you listen to your internal, I guess you can call it an internal clock, your intuition, and what your soul was telling you, whatever you believe, what God was telling you? And it's interesting because I haven't experienced God speak. I don't know if you want to call it that. I have not experienced God's word in my life until the past 2 years. The first one saved me, I believe, from being raped. I have a very viral video on TikTok about that, actually. And the other times that I've heard it, it was kind of a forceful push of like, I have to believe in myself. There is no plan B to everything that I'm going through. There is no plan B. I have to believe in myself, even if I'm the only one. I have to struggle on my own and heal from a genuine place of love and belief in myself, rather than fear of what happens if I fail, or fear if I let down these other people. So while on the topic of belief, that's what I want to talk about as well. Self-limiting beliefs are basically what box you put yourself in unconsciously based on what you've heard from other people, what you've seen, your own life experiences, that ensures you play small. Or beliefs about yourself or about the world that prevents you from making decisions that are good for you. And these beliefs can also work in a positive way, self-beliefs, but limiting beliefs is basically the idea that you put a glass ceiling above yourself. And how do you get out of that, right? So one of them that I want to use as an example is I had this belief that watching football had to be a chaotic event. That it means, okay, I'm going to slave over food for hours. I'm going to spend a lot of money preparing and cooking and hosting for people. They're going to come over, all the boys, they're going to come with beer. They're going to start drinking. They're going to get belligerent. It's going to be chaotic. I'm going to have to clean up after them at the end of the night. My partner's going to go like quiet on me, probably end up leaving and running off on a side quest and not tell me, and then I'm going to be worried for the rest of the night. And that's kind of how parties went in general. That's how celebrations went in general, even for my partner. And some of it, was humiliation. Like that was the intention. Some of it was, if you've heard of gray rocking and silent treatment, some of it was that. If I didn't perform properly. So there was always a lot of stress involved with football parties or hosting parties in general, or even going to some. It would always be a source of an argument or a source of anxiety that we weren't only going to fight that night, but for nights to come. So moving into this new place where I'm at right now and having a roommate who turns on the TV and watches football with popcorn and no screaming. No one gets drunk. No one punches the TV. Nobody throws tables. Nobody is making a mess that I have to clean up. Nobody is putting lives in danger by starting a bonfire and letting it go for the rest of the night, and is touching all the dead leaves above, from a tree. Is not making mistakes and forcing themselves upon me. I didn't know that was an option. And there's so many beliefs that we can have about ourselves and about the world, about people's races and how they're going to treat you. Negative experiences with professors and how they view you and your accomplishments. Having discussions with strangers about what you do for work. This is an example that I'm working on right now, is that I'm not embarrassed by what I do, but I'm embarrassed by how people will receive what I do. I'm ashamed to admit I create content. I have YouTube, I have Instagram, I have TikTok, I have a podcast. I wrote a book. All of it stemming from an abusive relationship that I left. I'm proud of what I've done. I've amassed over 25,000 followers in 1 year. That's incredible. I've networked with so many beautiful people. I've experienced more messages of encouragement and kindness from strangers in the past year than I have my entire life, 26 years combined. Easily, by far. I love what I do. I'm so proud of it. But when I have to explain that to a stranger, knowing that other people don't respect what I do and don't believe in what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, who diminish me to thirst trap or to, oh, you're just creating content like, I don't know, one of those influencers. You know, it's a derogatory term for me, the same way that wife in my mind was derogatory and played a role in being submissive, and that meant that you are worthless. I was conditioned so hard to believe that being a wife was an awful title for me. Being diminished, everything that I've ever done in my life, diminished to being a wife. And that's not the case for so many other people in this world, right? Being a wife is an incredible thing. It means you're, first of all, that you can create a partnership with someone that you love and believe in, and you're co-creating a whole new life for yourselves. Like, it should be something to be proud of. But because I had experienced so much negativity associated with being a wife, being called a dependopotamus, as if I didn't go to college, as if I hadn't accomplished all of these things, as if I hadn't run our family, as if I wasn't responsible for our lives. You know, it's interesting with being a military spouse is that your partner who's in the military is a luxury to have around. That's not a staple. They're not a staple in your day-to-day life. So you have to adapt and be both parents or both contributors, right, to everything that you do, whether that's finances, business, taking care of your home, taking care of the landscape. You know, I had a whole homestead. We had animals. We had a garden. We had neighbors. We had friends and family that I was always inviting over. I was like the manager, and we had joked that I was the manager of our lives and he was the chauffeur, which isn't fair, you know. I don't love that now looking back on it. But obviously your partner does contribute an incredible amount financially. But for me, it just wasn't a term I ever wanted to live up to. Being a wife was never a goal of mine. And so once I was one and I saw how everybody disrespected that title, I didn't even want to be one. I didn't want to be diminished to that title. But again, that was my self-limiting belief. And it's interesting now that I get to be by myself and come to my own conclusions about life. Like, what do I genuinely want from a place of love rather than fear, right? Do I want to be a wife? Do I want to be a mother? I don't want to be a mom who gets stuck with the kids all the time and has to take care of every single thing in their lives. I would never want to have children with my previous partner, but it doesn't need to be like that, right? There is a reality in which some people hire maids and nannies and chefs that can take that burden off of the mother. And there's also some fathers who pick up the slack and are able to bridge that gap, and you live an incredible life together. So if I were in ideal circumstances, that is a possibility for me in which I'd be proud of, right? But it's really just coming to terms with, all right, I have this belief. Is it from a place of fear? Do I have evidence built up in my mind that's true? Is it real? Is it statistically significant, right? When you talk about divorce, I think it's 60% now of marriages in the United States end in divorce. And people are so scared of that number. I don't see it as something to be scared of because marriage has changed. Not only do we view it in a religious context, but we also view it in like a partnership context. Okay, if you want a 50-50 marriage, you're going to have to contribute 50 and 50 of the finances, 50-50 of the domestic labor, 50-50 of, okay, if you want to start a business, we're both signing on that. We're both signing on the house. We're both going to invest in this, right? If your mental health is poor, I got to help you out. But if mine is, you have to do the same, and there's so many dynamics in which that's just not the case. And it's also, it hasn't been the case for millennia, right? There has been a role for a man versus a woman that I think only recently we're trying to figure that out and untie that from gender, and to see people as individuals in a relationship co-creating their lives together, rather than assigning roles and responsibilities simply based on who people are and what's in their pants, which is just so ridiculous. So that was one of the limiting beliefs that I held, and I'm working to undo that. And I'm still even digging into it. Like, because everyone else has kids, does that mean I want them? What about the longevity of the earth? I care so much about sustainability and the ecosystem, and about civil rights, and advocating for people, using my privilege to help others and raise them up. Is this a world I would want to bring kids? And all of these questions that come into my mind. But because I've had evidence in one direction or the other, that alters my beliefs. And so I need to ask you the question, what beliefs and in what domains of life are you limiting yourself based on other people's perceptions or your own experiences? I've had to come against this recently just in talking about my book. And there's a lot of people who don't believe in it, which is a shame because I believe in it so much. I see the potential for insane growth. And I've actually had a lot of confirmation of the possibilities of this growing, even on an international scale. And book tours and going to military bases and pamphlets and brochures of how to escape an abusive relationship, how to plan for it, how to help survivors, how to change the way police respond to cases, how to help domestic violence shelters to grow and to reduce the amount of people who go back to their abusers. Like, I see so many opportunities and I have the vision for it, but nobody else does. And why should they? They're not in my shoes. But surrounding yourself with people who don't believe in you, in what you're creating, in your vision, is so detrimental, especially if you're in the baby stages, right? I would argue at any stage, right now, the choices that I've made in my life, going no contact with so many people, pursuing myself and my vision relentlessly and unapologetically, it's been so hard, but I chose that because the alternative is building up callous. I think those are the two, maybe I'm wrong, but those seem to be the two options for me. And I try to live more in the gray area because I'm definitely 0 to 100 sometimes. But if it's no contact or becoming more callous and becoming a smaller version of myself so that I can continue to be in spaces with people who don't believe in me, who don't cherish me, who don't care about me, who put me down, who diminish me, if those are the two options, I'd rather be no contact. I'd rather be in my own company where I support myself, I believe in myself, and slowly build up some friendships that align with that, and where I can see those people betting on themselves too and creating a new reality, right? I want to see people who have overcome the challenges that I'm facing. I don't want to be surrounded by people who are making my life harder and more unfulfilling and draining me. I mean, there's a very, David Goggins-esque way to live, which is that you can be motivated and inspired by the spite and by other people's anger and disbelief, but I don't want to build callous anymore. I've done that my whole life. And where did it get me? In more dangerous positions with people who are worse to me because I built up a tolerance for it. With people who put me down more and more and more, diminished me to a shell, and almost had me like, I was at a point where I didn't want to live anymore because the only people in my life, in my sphere, were harmful. And I didn't see a way out. I didn't see light at the end of the tunnel. I had to be the light. I had to see the light and the delusional belief in myself. And that's what made me and kept me alive. That's what made me survive that point in time, that period of my life, was my persistence and my tenacity and my ability to have vision despite what everyone else thought and saw. It takes courage to do that. It does. And it makes you a courageous person as a result, right? It becomes part of your identity. It's not just what you did, it's who you are. And that's what's so beautiful about alchemy and transforming your life. And that's why I have this podcast and why I talk about it all the time. You aren't just brave for going through those circumstances. You aren't just strong for surviving it. You aren't just courageous because you left your abuser. Like, you are courageous, period. You are brave, period. You are strong, period. You survived, period. You are a survivor. You have to make it an identity change, right? The same way that they tell you about weight loss or addiction, overcoming any sort of, even, how do I word this? Overcoming any disbelief in yourself, you have to change who you are in order to get there, rather than changing the behavior or the title. Okay, I don't know if that's making sense. What I'm trying to get at is, like, if someone's trying to quit smoking, instead of saying, I'm trying to quit, you say, I'm not a smoker. I don't smoke. That's just not who I am. That's not what I do. So I don't smoke anymore. I don't smoke, period. Changing that is so subtle, but the words that you use create the truths of your life, right? Now, I could be delusional right now and say, like, oh, I'm skinny and fit and healthy. First of all, I don't even give a shit about being skinny anymore. But I could say I'm fit and I'm healthy. That's who I am. That's what I do. That's the lifestyle that I live. I live by the circadian rhythm. I make healthy decisions for myself. I care about my body. I respect my body. I care about longevity and mobility and all those things. I am a healthy person. I am a fit person. And while there's a part of me that doesn't believe that to be true, because there is a past in which I've made bad decisions, I've made unhealthy decisions, that is who I am now. That is what I'm pursuing now. It doesn't matter who I've been in the past. Who do I want to be? My body, there was a video that I posted a long time ago. It might have been one of my first videos on TikTok. It was long, probably like 8 minutes. And I said, my body's perfect. And it's not perfect because of how it appears. It's not perfect because I have perfect habits and I do everything perfectly. No, it's because it has perfectly handled every single situation that I've ever been in my life up until this point. It is a perfect reflection of where I came from and where I am now. The extra weight, all of that was attributed to something else that happened, or my identity in myself that allowed it to get to that point. It was my safety blanket. Being overweight had prevented me from doing things that scared me. It diminished my box. That limiting belief, it was so small because I believed I was so small. So although at the time that I filmed that video, I was not the healthiest I've ever been. I was not proud of my body and my weight and the amount of visceral fat that I had. I was not proud of my shame in myself and for letting myself get to that point. I was not proud of those things, but my body was a perfect reflection of every single circumstance that I'd been in my life up until that point, right? And our brain does the same thing. Your mental health is a perfect reflection of everything that you've experienced so far. Perfect reflection of nature and nurture, right? You come from a bloodline of alcoholics, of traumatized individuals. Your body, your mind is going to reflect that when you're born to keep you safe, right? When you're born in dysfunction, it makes so much sense that your body is going to respond differently to dysfunction than someone who hasn't experienced those things. Sit with that for a minute. Your mind is a perfect reflection of what you've experienced. And although society might disagree with that, right? Some mental illnesses, ADHD, OCD, I don't want to call that a mental illness, all of it, but anxiety, depression, all of those experiences have come from somewhere, genetic or environmental, right? Your body is responding in the way that it thinks is best, which is so sad and so frustrating that we live in a society that says that we're bad. We're not bad. There has been something happening for generations even before we got here that is predisposing us to the way that we problem solve. But we do have a choice, and that's what's so great about, this is why I love Blue Morpho, and all that I'm writing is just, at the end of the day, you have a choice to choose differently. You have a choice to create an entirely different life that you have no evidence to believe even exists for you. But you can make that decision. What do you want, regardless of who you've been in the past? Who do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? And then look out into the world for the evidence of that, right? Certain people have been president. Certain people have become surgeons. Certain people have done all of the things that you want to do in life. And they're not even half of the person that you want to be. Do you get what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe that was a bad analogy. If that person can do it, why can't you? Right? People who have been less intelligent, less skilled, less privileged, who have less money, who have experienced more adversity or different adversity, have done it. So why can't you? Look for those people to give hope and breathe life into you that what you want does exist. You just have to choose it. You have to say, regardless of everything that's happened in the past, regardless of my previous identity, regardless of what I've had to overcome, I can choose a different path. I don't have to stay in this cycle, especially not for the sake of, what was something I learned recently? Sinking funds. But it's like sinking debt, sinking time and energy and love. None of it was wasted. It's all brought you to where you are. And it sucks to say that, right? It's like everything happens for a reason. When you're going through it, you do not want to hear that. That is the last thing you want to hear, because how on earth could you alchemize? How on earth could you transform all of that pain and suffering and grief or struggle that you've experienced? How can you do anything with that? It's all bad. That's what it seems like in the moment, right? And it takes a long time sometimes. Took me, it's been over 2 years now, where I'm learning to choose differently. And I'm learning to see every obstacle and every barrier and all of the pain that I experienced as blessings in disguise. Because in every single one of those painful circumstances, I did learn something about myself, about the world, about who I want to be, who I don't want to be. That's an important one. I learned about psychology. I learned about human nature. Sorry, I'm applying my lip liner. I really slacked on the whole makeup part, but you have a decision of who you want to become in the future, and why are you not choosing a life that you want to live based on other people telling you that it's not possible? Okay, well, it's not possible for them. That's true, right? Look at them. Are they living a life where you would be excited to wake up? Would you want to switch lives with that person? Would you, even if you were in their shoes and you would do things differently and potentially better, would you want to wake up in that cycle that they are currently in? My answer for all of that's no. I have some incredible friends who have taught me some incredible things, but I wouldn't want to switch lives with them. Because I am taking a chance on myself. I am going against all the logic and reasoning and what's the word? Reasonable choices to make in life, the safe choices to make in life. I'm going against all of that because I have belief. I have vision. Not everyone has that. If you're listening to this podcast, you have it. And now you have the opportunity, because you're aware that you do, that things could be different. So you're only doing yourself a disservice by waiting and not taking that opportunity, not taking that chance on yourself. You're only hurting yourself. Like, no one's gonna be upset if you live a smaller life. I will be, but nobody is holding you accountable to pursuing your dreams except for you. So do you love yourself enough to pursue them? Do you care enough about yourself to be happy when you wake up in the morning? Or can you live a tolerable, miserable life? Can you live in the monotony? Can you live with a reality with your current partner? You know, if you live in an abusive relationship or not. Is this what you want for the rest of your life? How would you feel if you woke up at 70 living the exact same way that you are right now? Would you be content? And I think it's so important to bring awareness to the fact that you have choice, because we get so lost in living up to other people's expectations, even on a daily basis, and work and output, and putting ourselves last, or not even last, but definitely not pursuing yourself with the same tenacity that you pursue everything else, because at least there's outside validation for what you're doing, right? Oh, wow, red was a bold choice. Interesting, Raven. I regret that. It's fine. Red lipstick just went on. Oh no, am I ovulating? That's the only time I put on red. Anyway, if you know better, you are tasked with the responsibility to do better in your life. It is, unfortunately, your burden now to make different choices and to not complain about the choices you make on a daily basis that are contributing to your suffering and to your limitation in life, right? It's so much easier to blame outside influences because you don't have to take accountability, and that's what so many people do on a daily basis. If you want to go into construction, do it, dude. Me as a woman, I have so many unique interests where I was like, oh yeah, I want to be a mechanic. Oh yeah, I want to be an architect. Oh yeah, I want to be a lawyer. Oh yeah, I want to pursue this. Instead of pursuing all of those at 100%, I am doing, I would say, like 1 to 5% every day to pursue each of my interests in a way that I believe at the end of the day, I will have such a balanced perspective from so many different fields and people and influences. I will have knowledge of so many different things that I will be valuable in being a polymath, in being the individual who has so many different experiences that makes them an asset in the form of novelty and innovation. I value that. I value that in myself. I value that in others. Jack of all trades, master of none is still better than a master of one. I value that. So I'm going to pursue that against everybody's belief that that is the worst way to live. And I get why. Because your success does not happen overnight. Because you are not niching down to be palatable for society. You are not easily put into a box. You will be diminished out of all of those different areas of life and different domains, because there are going to be experts in all of them, but because of a vast, I don't know, because of your vast experience in all of these different things, you have a lot to bring to the table. You really do. And that's at least the life that I'm living. You can completely disagree with me. You can live a different life. You can live one where you are the one and only expert in this field, very specific niche. And I love that for you. Pursue it. If it's true for you, pursue it. And that's, again, another thing that I don't understand. Why is it that people have so much trouble, experience so much inner turmoil from breathing life into other people's dreams? I guess it's just never been a problem of mine, so I can't see how, but I don't see supporting other people in their crazy, beautiful visions as diminishing my own. And I don't know what it is in people that creates that quiet resentment. I don't feel it, and if I do, I try to go up against it and be like, okay, what is it about them that makes me feel insecure? What is it about them where I said something to limit them? Why would I do that? What belief in myself am I not nurturing in order to make me react that way? And it's challenging to view the world in that way, where you question every decision that you make to try to understand why you do what you do. But I think it's so valuable, and I really wish more people would question themselves. Question yourself on why you hold the beliefs you do. Which of them are not beneficial to you in the long term? I'll give you another example of limiting beliefs. Having a boss for me, and working alone, and choosing entrepreneurship. It's not because I want to do this all on my own all the time. It does come from a place of not trusting others, not believing that they have my best interest at heart, because all of my life experience has proved that nobody else does, right? And that's hard to come up against and to realize I have this belief that prevents me from asking for help, which, referencing my last podcast episode, asking for help, admitting that other people have answers that you don't, and that you can learn from someone faster, more efficiently, and create a better relationship and network and communicate with other people that can expand your ideas outside of you better than if you were to do it by yourself. It's hard to ask for help when you've only been told the story that you will not receive it. That's something that I am currently working on. Not only asking for help, but receiving it gracefully and putting myself in uncomfortable positions to receive it as well, right? If I talk about my struggles and my friends create solutions for me to take advantage of, and I say no at first because I don't trust them or I don't feel fully comfortable or I don't feel like they truly meant it, it's like I have to put myself into the position of who do I want to be? I want to be someone that accepts help. I want to be someone who experiences other people's kind, generous, compassionate love that is not asking for reciprocation. But I won't experience that until I do. I won't experience that until I put myself in situations where I get to appreciate it and actually increase my tolerance for kindness. Increase my ability to hold on to joy and abundance in whatever way that is, right? Financial abundance, that I can be really healthy and not binge. I didn't realize I had an eating disorder until I had left my abusive marriage. And it's like, how did I live that way for so long? And I didn't know any better. But now that I do, I have been tasked with the burden of changing it. And so one of my burdens right now is accepting help and learning how to do that with an open hand and to trust that people have good intentions. And it's not even, I wouldn't say it's blind trust. It's more like, have they built evidence for me to trust this person? Have they built evidence for me to think that they're going to harm me? You know, and I think that there is always going to be a part of me that has, I wouldn't say one foot out the door, but I can put myself in circumstances that are uncomfortable and learn from them. And guess what? I can handle myself because I've experienced far worse, right? Like, what is a friendship betrayal to a divorce and losing my family, losing my dog, losing my house? By comparison, I can handle whatever is coming next. I can handle it. So what am I so scared of? Right? And it's so interesting that I'm surrounded by people who have that perspective now, is that instead of preventing the bad thing from happening, they have enough trust and confidence in themselves that no matter what unfolds, they can handle themselves and they will resolve it for themselves. Right? Let's say, I'm trying to think of another example of that happening. You're afraid of, great example, releasing a book, right? Because you're afraid that no one's going to validate it. Sounds familiar. And then you put it into perspective like, okay, well, this book is for a select amount of people, right? Not everyone's going to appreciate it or understand it, and that's fine. But you still want the validation, right? So if it were to flop, if you were to publish it and nobody buys it, crickets for 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. Actually, my mentor talks about releasing her coaching program, and it was months of crickets, but she was still pushing that out into the world saying, yeah, I'm a coach. Here's my program. Regardless of how long it's been out, regardless of how many people have signed up already, that was her identity, that she is a coach. I am an author now. I am a writer. That's something that I do. It's who I am. I'm an artist. I'm a content creator. It's something that I do, but it is now who I am. But if that were to flop, would it change you? Would it change your identity? No, because it's not the thing that you put out into the world. Your value, your worth, your identity is not based on other people's perception of this thing. It is based on you, the creator of it. It's scary. And so what if it flops, right? What if it takes some time to find the right people who will appreciate what you're putting out into the world? Because most likely it will. It will not be an overnight success. It will not be within seconds that you're going to get everything that you ever asked for all at once. And even if it were to fail epically, let's imagine you put all your time, all your money, all your energy, you have no plan B. Sounds like me. Um, so what? You're capable of handling it now. You can handle that. What is a little bit of struggle by comparison? And that's why it's so beautiful to have experienced rock bottom. Is that you truly, even if you were to go there again, you pulled yourself out from the depths of hell. You can do it again. And it's very unlikely that you're going to feel that again because you have so many more tools now to dig yourself out. I guess you wouldn't be digging if you're at the bottom, right? Pull yourself out. What tools are we throwing in there? I don't know. You're going to carve some rungs like a ladder into the stone, okay? You're going to get out. You're going to get out faster. You're going to get out with more energy because you've been educated. You've experienced, life has been your teacher. That's such a beautiful thing. So many people don't experience that. They don't know what rock bottom does for your growth. And that's a concept that I really want to talk about. And that's the concept of this entire platform and all my platforms is post-traumatic growth is a real thing. You face struggle, you face adversity, and instead of bending to it and breaking because of it, of this trauma, which definitely is an option that many people choose to do, you can choose to grow from it. You can choose to learn from it. You can choose differently moving forwards. Trauma and pain is an opportunity, and it sounds terrible, and I would never say this to someone who is currently experiencing it, so sorry if you need to cover your ears, but pain and trauma are opportunities for change, for growth, for evolution of who you are. I don't know if I've ever talked about the story of Blue Morpho and why I chose that name. I'll share a little bit right now just because it means a lot to me. Blue Morpho is a butterfly. It's the first time that I ever saw a Blue Morpho butterfly at my grandmother's home. She would have butterfly wings all over the place, which I now found out is quite illegal. But back in the day, I'm not sure if it was. And they were from Brazil. The most incredible blue iridescent butterfly wings that I've seen. And she, my grandmother, being the kindest, most inspiring, most generous person I've ever met in my entire life, bar none, no one can light a candle to her, like no one and nothing has come close to the amount of grace that she had given to this world when people did not deserve it. And she had experienced a concentration camp in the Dutch East Indies. She was taken as prisoner, and at the young age, I believe she was less than 10, I think. She was in this concentration camp eating bugs. She kept a diary the whole time, sewn into her pillowcase, and that's how they never found it. Talking about what daily life was like, living in dirt and among rodents and hearing people's screams, and it was torture. There was a lot of torture. Her and my grandfather both. They had experienced so much hardship, had seen so much cruelty of humanity, but she chose to be the light that she didn't have. And looking back at her family lineage, like being raised as a child to be seen but not heard, I feel like she had come up against so much adversity, and the same perception that I have, just because it's hard doesn't mean it needs to be hard for everyone. She saw that her life was hard and she wants to make other people's lives better and easier and more loving. She was the change that she wanted to see in the world. So from pain came purpose, and she transformed all of that pain that she experienced and all the trials and tribulations of her young life. I mean, having multiple children, moving across continents, getting married at a young age. I now see so many, I wouldn't call it similarities, but so many ways in which she was disadvantaged from a young age. And she chose to be the light that she didn't have. And she was an incredible bright light. So the Blue Morpho butterfly, I always associate that now with transformation. And like a butterfly, like a caterpillar goes into a chrysalis, right? We have no idea what happens in there. I wonder, maybe one day we will find out. It's like your bones, what, liquefy? Is it painful? Are caterpillars screaming the whole time? But it's a part of the process in order to get to the next step, into the next stage. You are putting yourself in a cocoon where you are vulnerable, where you are a soft body capable of being eaten and destroyed, but you create a shell around you. And that's what I feel like I've done in my life. I had to separate myself from everyone and build this shell to protect myself, build this barrier between me and the people who were hurting me and the people who were hunting me and predatory, but also I was preventing the world from seeing me for who I truly was and who I wanted to be because I was scared. And I had to rebuild myself. Regardless of who I was, I became a soft, mushy body in this cocoon. And for a while, I even tried to repel. And I have written a poem, I believe it's in my second chapter, so unreleased so far, for Psychopaths Are Sexy, chapter 2, The Awakening. I guess it must be in Alchemy in the third chapter, where I make the comparison that I am in a cocoon or a chrysalis that is like studded with spines and has angry looking animal eyes to prevent predators from eating it, that I've tried to repel evil from me. I've tried to repel people from me. But in doing so, I've also prevented myself from experiencing kindness and softness because I've been trying to repel everyone and everything. And the last line I think is, careful not to make this chrysalis a prison too. It's like when we talk about self-limiting beliefs, I was putting myself in this cage trying to repel everything dangerous from me, but I was also putting on a front that I am this person who cannot be loved and was unworthy, and everyone in my life is dysfunctional, and so I'm going to just push myself out of society. So I'm the only one who knows how soft and vulnerable and loving I can truly be, but in doing that, I imprison myself. I was stuck living in my own cell. And that's a part of the healing process, is recognizing, okay, you've actually built skills to get yourself out. And if you were ever preyed upon again, if a predator ever comes after you again, guess what? You have some mechanisms now to save yourself and to be accountable for your own healing and your own protection. And it's, I think, an interesting part of American culture, especially of Disney movies, and the princess needs saving all the time, and having this idea that maybe one day I'll be saved. Maybe someday someone will see my value and I won't have to experience that again. But is it better to live your life assuming someone's going to save you, or is it better to learn how to save yourself? And if someone comes along who makes your life easier so that you don't need to continue doing that, fantastic. But to rely on external factors that you cannot control, that's just illogical. That's insanity. To learn to save yourself is a beautiful skill, and to understand that you are the difference between tolerating that harm again. You can protect yourself proactively, but can also allow light and love and generosity in. You don't need to be imprisoned in this, oh, I can do it all by myself, so I'm going to for the rest of my life. I'm not going to let anyone in because look at what happened last time. Our past stories become the narrative that we repeat on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and that also limits you. For me, acknowledging what I went through as abuse was transformative. Acknowledging that I had been victimized transformed me. The scapegoat child, like all of these terms that I learned about, was incredible for my healing journey because, number one, I was able to recognize other people who had experienced something similar and learn from how they overcame it. Because in isolation, it is so hard to heal. I'm just going to say that across the board. Doing anything as a human being in complete isolation is so hard. You're going to take longer to learn the lessons. You don't have people helping you. You don't have a community. I mean, that's not how life was meant to be lived. But if you do have to do it alone, you absolutely can. It'll take longer, it'll be harder. But seeing that other people have already done it as an example just makes the process so much easier. So that's what I hope to do with my social media, because I didn't have someone doing this for me. I want to be that light for someone else. I want to be the change in the world that I did not previously have. And I think that that's a worthy cause. I love people. Despite everything that I've experienced, I love people. I love animals. I love everything. Oh my gosh, I can't do eyeliner. Oh, well, that's crazy. My bad. I still want to contribute despite the fear and despite the story that others had told me and that I had told myself, that people were untrustworthy, that I should fear them. I don't. And I think that there is so much connection that we're missing out on based on replaying the stories of our past experiences to limit us to stay in unfamiliar spaces. And that's why I value social media so much, is that you get to learn from people so far away from you, in different cultures, in different states, in different phases of their life. Understand what they did, even if you don't have a support system. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? Fuck it. Excuse my language. We're gonna go bold on the eyeliner because we already screwed up. You can learn at an accelerated rate. You can prevent yourself from making similar mistakes. And I think that that's worthy. And I love social media for that ability. And I think it's a unique experience to live now. Although everything that is happening in the world might be overwhelming and stressful, and we have too much information, and the unlimited scroll, or whatever they call infinite scroll, could be damaging. I see so much potential for connection, for growth on a global scale, for us to connect with other people. And I think also, can we talk about Red Note for a second? Not that we should, but it is opening a door to communicate with people who we have been raised to fear or conditioned to, I don't know, treat differently, which is kind of what all Americans have done for all of eternity, is an us versus them mindset, which doesn't need to be that way. Obviously, it's helped us to conquer and to get to where we are, but it is not the end-all be-all solution, especially not if we want to create unity on a global level with other people. Again, what did I just say about community? Learning from other people's mistakes is only going to benefit everybody. Holding people accountable and to a higher standard is only going to help everybody to overcome the same things, to learn faster, to uphold a higher standard, benefits people, so that we don't have everyone running around lowering our standards and putting ourselves in harm's way and making bad decisions, because that's all we've ever known, because we've only experienced dysfunction and hatred and chaos and all of the bad things. It doesn't need to be that way. Wow, okay, so if you're watching, the makeup is going wild. Raven! We did a red lip, and then I did some eyeliner, and then I did some eyeliner on top, and now we got like this crazy kind of smoky eye going on. Pretty intense eyeliner. I don't even know if it's good. Definitely was not my intention from the beginning of this video. Anyway, whatever. It's fun. It's just makeup. So that's all I wanted to share today about that. Again, if you are interested in checking out my book, it's called Psychopaths Are Sexy. Chapter 1, Grooming, is now available on Amazon for download as an ebook. I'm going to release all 3 as ebooks, and then I'll be releasing the physical copy that combines all of them. Each individual book will have an exit strategy and resources to support survivors of domestic abuse or people who are currently being victimized. I'm trying to help y'all out in the way that I didn't have it and the way that I needed it so that we can rise up together. With that being said, I also have my Blue Morpho Podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, go over there, go subscribe. It's weird, a podcast algorithm works differently, so if you found anything valuable in this podcast, please leave a comment and share it with a friend, and hopefully we can have listening parties one day. That'd be so fun. I would love to do interviews. I would love to be on different podcasts and talk about my experiences, especially with alchemy and choosing to overcome my own limiting beliefs and helping you to do the same with your life. But I'll leave a poll on my Spotify asking which beliefs you've overcome or would like to overcome and what you found most valuable in this episode. And also on Instagram, go over there, go check that out and follow if you care to, if I'm your cup of tea. And post, I make posts every week asking what topic you'd like me to cover from the healing journey. We can talk about domestic abuse survivorship. We can talk about my personal faith journey, mental health for military and their spouses, so many different aspects. I need to niche down, so they say, but I'm not gonna. I like it this way. So go check me out on all the platforms. My link tree has all my information in it. And I am so glad that you guys tuned in. I love you so much. I would not be where I am without you. Just building my confidence, especially strangers from afar. If you don't have the community around you that you need, you can build it. And that's what we've done. So I really appreciate you. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Know that somebody out there cares and loves you for who you are and for who you're going to become. Mwah. Talk soon.